coming into a school year that's unprecedented. You've never had a year like it just gone by in all your years of education, because nobody else has either. What are some of the things people can look forward to this year in District 1? Or anything new people are going to notice? Or
Well, I think one of the things is we've got a little bit of experience. I mean, we've got a more than a year's worth of experience now in dealing with the pandemic and in dealing with COVID, and we certainly found some things that have worked. We found some things that have not worked, and we have a little bit more institutional knowledge now than we had at this time last year. There was a lot of really good. We believe this is going to be a really good idea. We think this is our path forward, but none of us were really sure. We've gotten some more information now. We've gotten lots of anecdotal evidence from last year about what worked and what didn't work, and so we're quite a bit more confident going into this year than we were going into last year. There'll certainly be some changes.
Did you learn some things that'll be helpful going forward?
Oh, absolutely. You know, one of the things that we learned was the protocols that we had in place, even at the very end of the year, were really pretty effective at preventing the spread of the virus. We had very little spread of the virus within the school. Now, we had employees and kids who got the virus last year. But what we didn't see was there a lot of spread. It wasn't like one student in Miss Smith's third grade class got it and all of a sudden 5 got it. Very rarely did another student get it. And so we feel like the protocols that we had in place worked pretty well. There were some things that we did that, quite frankly, we don't feel like mitigated anything. For instance, one of the things we did was took temperatures of the employees and the students before they came into school. And what we found out was that after right out 1 million temperature takes, we hadn't had a single one of those kids sent home with COVID, and so that was a lot of work on our schools and really didn't produce a lot of results. And so those are some of the things that we didn't do. When we started off last year, nobody could use the playgrounds, and we kind of systematically phased the playgrounds back in. Found out had no issues with kids using the playground. So those are the kinds of things that we really learned last year.
What about structurally from an education? You've been an educator a long time. Were there any things that arose that y'all learned? Hey, we can do this better than we did before the pandemic. We've learned from this.
Well, and I think one of the things that we learned was how to have a virtual school. We learned how to teach kids who weren't physically in front of us. We have a very small virtual school this year. Only those students who either they themselves or a family member has a medical issue that would prevent them from coming to school. But we feel like we have a good model with our elementary, middle, and high school students in working through that. So that's certainly something that we learned a lot about. The number of students will be greatly diminished in that virtual school this year, but it's still available for when it's necessary.
Do you feel like you've got a good handle on how many students may have gotten lost in the mix? I've talked to other superintendents. You know, there were some students who were already sort of on the edge of not doing well before the pandemic. Have y'all got kind of a good handle on those kids?
We think we do. And as can be expected, there were more of our virtual school students who struggle than our face-to-face students, and that's just to be expected. We certainly had some virtual school students who did exceptionally well. And of course we had some face-to-face students who struggled as they usually did, but we feel like the individual schools have a good handle on which one of those students got a little bit behind, which ones got a lot behind. Many of those students were invited and attended summer school, which we believe, we had a very intensive summer school program this year that we feel like was going to be really helpful for those students. And then, of course, going into this school year, we have a lot of intervention planned because we know there are going going to be some gaps, that some learning concepts and ideas that the kids just didn't get last year, and of course all the way into March of the year before that. So we feel like we've got a good plan of being able to provide kids with some really good instructional resources, but also provide some intervention for those students who may need some additional work in the coming years.
You got kids coming back, teachers coming back, some new teachers and all. Are there any physical things you're going to notice different this year, or you got new buildings, new programs, new things that people are going to notice?
Right. Well, we certainly have some new buildings. Palmetto Middle School, Wren Middle School are both. Palmetto Middle School is almost complete now, so we'll have a complete building for those students. Wren Middle will be starting phase 3, so all of their building is complete with the exception of the related arts wing. It will be finished by January, February sometime. We have a number of schools: Powdersville High School, Powdersville Middle School, Spearman, Cedar Grove, have all received 8 to 10 room additions, and all of those were actually utilized at least by the end of last school year. Our biggest changes this summer will be at Palmetto Elementary and Wren Elementary. Both essentially the entire HVAC system has been replaced in those two schools, along with the fire alarm and some of the related mechanical systems. And then Palmetto High and Wren High both got major renovations were done, and will be continuing, particularly at Palmetto, through about October. So at Palmetto, those of you that have been in Palmetto know that Palmetto High School, that the front office was actually located in the middle of the school, not in the front of the school. So we've moved the front office now to the front of the school, and that'll be open, ready to go when school starts. There'll still be some classroom work that'll be done for a couple of months at Palmetto High, but both Palmetto High and Wren High will have secure vestibules, which neither have had prior to this summer. So all of our schools will now have secure vestibules.
And y'all are facing a really phenomenal challenge of growth that's coming here, both that's already come and that's on the horizon. How are y'all planning for that? I mean, it's hard to plan when you pick up the paper and somebody says you're going to have 400 new houses, 500 new houses.
It really is. It is a daily challenge. We work with our local elected officials. They keep us informed. They invite us to meetings with those folks that are in development, so that really just everybody understands what the challenges are for our district. There are clearly some challenges for a growing district like ours. Hiring the additional teachers is certainly one challenge in and of itself. The pool of teachers is certainly way down from, say, 10 years ago, and recruiting quality employees, whether that be teachers or bus drivers, custodians, student nutrition service, it's difficult. It's very difficult these days. And then you have the added issues of space. Where are you going to put that additional 50 kids at this school, or 25 kids at this school? And it's an issue that we really struggle with daily as to how we keep up with the growth as far as our capacity to be able to house students, as well as the employees to be able to teach them.
One of the big issues pre-pandemic everybody talked about almost daily was security. How is this? Is that kind of back on everybody's? You reevaluating all your security now that everybody's coming back and everybody's on campus again?
It is, but for us, and I think for the majority of districts around us, that most of the students were back last year. So whether that be 80, 85, 90% of the students are back last year. I don't know that any of us ever got away from the safety measures that we had in place, and certainly some of our time, a lot of our time, was devoted to how do we deal with the protocols with the pandemic. I'm not sure that our safety features really ever went away last year.
One of the things that is returning in full force will be extracurricular activities, all sports, and the teachers and coaches involved in that. I know they're really itching to get back to that. Talk to me a little bit about how important those things are to your student athletes and your students who are just involved in other activities.
Absolutely, and extracurricular activities are really vital to our students. It is a place to belong, as well as some phenomenal leadership activities that things like sports and band and music and ROTC and the like actually gives our students. And for the most part, our sports program, we ran a full sports program last year. In the fall, the spectators were diminished quite a bit, and there were a number of practice regulations that were just protocols that coaches and players had really never had to deal with before. But they really handled those. I mean, I would even say flawlessly. We did not have an awful lot of outbreaks among our athletes, certainly no more than in the general population of students. So we feel really good about going into with our extracurricular activities. We started some of our club activities probably mid-year last year. Obviously, there were lots of protocols that were in place, but those clubs are really important to our students, and so we brought them back as quick as we possibly can. We feel like extracurricular wise, we're going to have as close to a normal a year as we possibly can, or at least that's our plan to begin with, and we'll see what the data shows and see if we need to make any changes.
Now, how good are your sports teams this year? How are they going?
I think we're going to be just fine. We got some great athletes and great coaches, so I'm excited to watch them.
Well, I know behind the scenes you and your board and your team is working. What sorts of things do y'all have envisioned for this year? Y'all have any strategic plans, anything you want to talk to the public about?
Sure. Well, and I think one of the things that's going to be really important to us during this first semester is we have a Cognia visit. Cognia is the accrediting agency for South Carolina schools. So that's a really important process for us to go through to really take a deep dive into the data, into the processes, to the culture, to our mission, and to really evaluate all of those at a really deep level. So that'll be something that'll take place throughout the entire fall. We'll have our visit from the Cognia. It'll actually be a virtual visit from them, but they'll come and evaluate our systems and test scores and the like. So that'll be really important for us. One of the things that we started a few years back that COVID really kind of put a pause, or at least was certainly a pretty big bump in the road for us, was our professional learning communities. And every school has a professional learning community where essentially teachers are working together to figure out what is it that's absolutely essential that kids know, how we're going to assess it, how we're going to know when kids know those essential standards, and then what are we going to do when they don't get it, and then what are we going to do when they already have it? What kind of enrichment activities? And we feel like that's the vehicle on which we're going to really be able to move the district forward. We have got some phenomenal educators out there, and I may be great at fractions, but I'm not as good. I don't do quite as good a job with the geometry concepts, but we got some educators out there that are great with that geometry concept, and so with them being able to work together and help each other, and then to collectively say these are all our kids, not just the 24 in my classroom, but all the third graders in this school are my kids, and part of my responsibility is to help not only educate the 24 in my classroom, but the 24 in the other 3 or 4 sections in the school as well. So we'll really be kind of getting back on the PLC, the professional learning community train, and really trying to up our game with through that process.
How do your teachers and even the front office, how do y'all communicate? How important is y'all's communication? How do y'all communicate with parents and students?
Well, communication's vital. I mean, parents need communication, and in today's world, people expect pretty instant access to information. We use a variety of sources. We find that some people prefer a text, some people prefer a phone call, some people prefer an email. We have some apps that we use, the Remind app and Seesaw, and there's some additional technology that schools utilize as well. And so we feel like, and our district actually sends out a fairly regular memo to our parents and to our employees, trying our best to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So much information, so much changes so quickly. It's important to try to get that out as soon as we get it. And social media is it's a big part of that. And people use social media. It's kind of a part of a lot of people's lives now. And so we try to be a really positive presence on social media and provide some updated information on there as well.
Do individual teachers have websites for all their classes, or?
They do. Each individual teacher has a website, and we use the Google Classrooms, and the elementary schools use Seesaw, which is similar, just an elementary version, where a parent or a student could go to those sites to see what the lessons were that day, and to see examples or maybe videos of what was done in class. So that's been a change in the past 4 or 5 years that I think has really been beneficial to our students and to our families, our parents as well, because it's this place they know they can go to get the information that they're probably looking for, academically speaking.
And because of some of the protocols last year, it was not quite as easy for parents just to show up and come and visit and do things. Remind parents how important those relationships with their teachers are.
Yeah, absolutely. And last year we had very few conferences one-on-one within the school, but that didn't mean we weren't communicating with parents, and parents weren't communicating with us. And it's vital. It's really important that a parent knows what's going on in the classroom, and for the teacher to reach out to the parent, to reach out to the teacher, particularly when there appears to be that there's an issue going on. And of course, when things are going really well, that's a great time to reach out as well. Really enjoy having Johnny in class. Let me tell you a story about what happened today. I was really proud of him for whatever. So it is absolutely essential that the school do a good job of communicating with parents and vice versa. Well, I think one of the things that we are really fortunate is the community that we live and work in. We have phenomenal employees. We have great kids, and we got great community members and parents. And we made some mistakes last year. We did some things that we a couple of months later said that wasn't very helpful. And we didn't do some things that maybe we should have put in place, but we got an awful lot of grace from our employees and from our parents and our community as well. That was really appreciated. It was appreciated that we didn't get a lot of emails that said, y'all are a bunch of idiots, and y'all don't know what you're doing. It was like, hey, I know this is difficult. We appreciate the fact that y'all looked at this and saw that this wasn't working and made a change. And we feel like overall we made some really good decisions last year. We got some great input from the community, from our, we have a medical task force that looks at a lot of our protocols. We think they made some just spot on decisions. that helped us make some really good, put some things into the system that really helped. So I am very appreciative of where I am. Our board is phenomenal. They are incredibly supportive, very thoughtful group of folks. They want what's best for our kids and our employees. They want us to be they want our taxpayers to get a really good bang for the buck, and they do a phenomenal job of making sure that we keep what's important in front of us all the time. So we're fortunate from our board to our community and parents and our employees and kids. We're just really fortunate.